Welcome to the Kitsap Literary Artists and Writers and its monthly author showcase. I am your host, Peter Stockwell. Author Dayna Jo Mason is visiting with us this month at the Bremerton Kitsap Access Television Studios. Dayna and I met at University Place branch of the Pierce County Library when she was part of a panel with me of authors at the first annual Independent Authors Day in 2016. We've crossed paths at other author gatherings and over the last couple of years. Dayna writes books which explore the need for wedding planning and writing personal words and vows. Welcome to our broadcast at Kitsap Literary Artists and Writers.
Thank you.
And you have brought with you
Jason Andrada. He's my co-author on my latest book.
All right, and we'll talk about that later, and Jason will get into talking with you as well. Everyone has to find their own way in this world, including any beliefs that may have been about mysteries that we have, because truly all we really have is faith in what we believe to be is true. What do you believe?
I believe in a higher power that I call God, but I don't impose that on others. I really do believe that everybody has to find their own way.
Well, you grew up in an environment of diversity in Seattle.
Capitol Hill.
Capitol Hill. And explain what you learned and how you've applied what your lessons were to your books that you write and the ceremonies that you oversee. Because you do weddings.
I do. I officiate weddings. I think probably the biggest takeaway for me really has to do with, understanding people are people, regardless of race or ability or economic status. At the end of the day, we're all human beings. And I really wanted to reach out to people, especially people that are economically disadvantaged. When I published my first book, I want to make sure that my book was accessible to people that couldn't afford to buy it. And so I spent the first year trying to get my book into the library system. And so it's now all over the United States and pretty much all the library systems around the U.S.
Now, writers are told that they should write what they know. Is there any other part of your life that has made it into your books?
There is, but to that point, you should write what you know. I actually was taught the opposite of that at the University of Washington. My professor said, actually, you should write what you want to learn, and that way you take your reader on a journey. And so that's really what the approach I've taken to the books that I've written is I'm writing to learn something or to discover something.
And helping others to discover the same thing that you are learning.
Right, and so they get to go on the journey with me.
After all, your books are what are called nonfiction, whereas I write fiction. So when my people go on a journey, they're going on to strange places with strange things that are happening to people in the crime mystery world. Have you enjoyed the challenge of becoming a better known author? Marketing your books? How do you market them? I mean, you said about libraries because one of the things that I read in your bio on your website was that you thought libraries were your other home.
Yes, I loved hanging out at the library. I spent a great deal of time at the library as a child, and even today I like to go and visit the libraries that carry my books and
you're actually going to visit your books, aren't you?
I do. I go and visit the library and take pictures of my books on the shelves.
And do you keep those pictures for yourself, or you're going to share them with us at some time?
I will share them at some point.
At some point. So, all right, now let's get into this marketing thing because you have your books in libraries all across the country. Mm-hmm. How?
It's a laborious process. You have to submit your title to each library system individually. And there's a website that you can Google that has a list of all of the library systems in the United States and links hopefully to their websites. Have to go visit the website and see how they want to have your book submitted. Mm-hmm. So some, it's a form that you fill out online, some it's an email you send, some want you to send a copy of the book, very rarely. Mostly it's either an email or a form. And the other thing that kind of makes the difference, whether or not they'll even consider your title, is you need a respected review. So you need a review done by a recognized reviewer like a Kirkus or Clarion Forward. And it needs to be a fairly decent review. And that's just to get you in the door for them to consider your title.
I know one of the things that when I was working with the Kitsap Regional Library here was I knew people in the library system, and I said, will you carry my books? And they were very willing to take a donation of books.
Yes.
And then as I've learned from them later, that if your book is doing well, they order it.
Oh, interesting. I hadn't heard that.
And I thought, that I could work with that. So making a donation to a library is not something that is unpalatable to me. Did you ever make donations to the libraries that you needed to?
Oh, absolutely. In my travels, I often will drop off a copy of one of my books or multiple books at libraries in the area that I'm visiting. And with a business card so they can contact me if they need to, and also a link to like I said, the recognized review, so that it kind of shortcuts things for them so they can see that, not necessarily that the book's doing really well, especially for a new title. It hasn't had a chance to do well or not, but it lends credibility to the title if you have a review, a decent review from a recognized reviewer.
Now you have how many books out?
6.
6 books. And in those 6 books, your name is becoming recognizable, correct?
A little bit, yeah.
A little bit. Does that help getting into the libraries when they say, oh, yeah, we have your other books?
I'm not sure because I haven't been part of that decision-making process in the library. I just know how I submit, and it seems like I submit the book and they pick it up at some point. And so far, all of my titles have been picked up by the library system. Every time I submit, they pick it up. So,
well, that's good.
It is.
That's good.
I like it.
Being a writer was a big change from my previous occupation as a middle school teacher here in Kitsap County. What did you do before you became this prolific writer?
I was in information technology. I started as a programmer, worked my way into project analysis, and finished as a director of several IT departments, and then decided I wanted to do something else.
So you gave up your day job before you had your books
I
making
did.
it? Wow.
I did.
That's just the opposite of what they tell us to do.
I know.
Yeah.
But I had, I didn't just, take a huge risk. I aligned myself financially so that I had about 6 months to a year to either make it or not, to either do something with it or not, and have to go back to IT, which that would have been fine, but I really was ready to do something different.
Yeah. Well, I retired, so I had my steady income also.
Oh, okay.
That was helpful, yeah. Now, writing fiction, we authors can become enveloped with our characters. And that's a little different from what you do, because you're writing about couples and they're wanting to have the perfect wedding. So when you write about brides and grooms, has this, and talked with them, has this enhanced what you've put into books and how you've made your books better?
Oh, absolutely. One of the things I'm working on currently is the 3rd edition of the best-selling wedding book, based on working with couples, officiating weddings, and writing new material for their ceremonies. As I collect the material over 2 or 3 years, I put all that into the next edition of the book.
And who publishes your books?
I do.
So you're one of these independent, self-published people.
I am.
Do you
I
have
also
your own
have a little.
company?
Yes, I have a little publishing company called Seattle Indie Press that, in addition to publishing my own books, I use it for other self-published authors who don't necessarily have all of the skills necessary to publish their own work, but they don't want to sign up with a publishing house because they want to retain rights to their work. My company kind of is the in-between, in that can help you get everything professionally ready to publish, and even publish for you, but you retain all the rights.
You're not a vanity press, though.
No.
Not the kind that says, hey, for $5,000 I can get you 1,000 books.
No, it's very a la carte. It's like maybe you have a friend that does graphic design, and so you don't need a book cover, but you really need a solid editor.
We all do.
And so my company, I have individuals that we work with that provide the different services that go into publishing a book, and you can pick and choose which pieces of that you need. And then if you want a publishing imprint, then the Seattle Indie Press imprint would go on the book.
Yeah. Well, and that's the nice thing about being an independent author. We get to do what we want.
Exactly. You can try different things and see what works and what doesn't.
At the same time, we still have to make sure that they are professional books.
Right.
And as you said about editing, that becomes that's the main crux. We had a panel last month over at Barnes & Noble, and there were 9 of us there, and the question was asked of us towards the end of our panel about editing, and there wasn't one of us who said, oh yeah, no, we don't need editors. No, we all were saying, yeah. And of course, as I've heard at conferences, there isn't an author out there that says their first manuscript's great. It's just a piece of trash, and we're going to give it to an editor and have it fixed and have it improved. So, yeah, it's good. I have the thinking that your books would be great for television.
Yeah, how so?
You see these shows on TV like The Bachelorette and The Bachelor, where they're out there and in a short period of time they're finding the person that they want. Or this new show that's just on that I think is hilarious, The Proposal, which comes on after it. Within the course of an hour, they interview this person who's hidden from view, interviews 10 people and whittles it down to the last 2, and then decides, they have to decide whether they're going to propose or not.
In a course of an hour.
In the course of an hour. So I'm thinking, after they get done with all of this, they come to you and get onto your show, and you have all this nice show about how you get ready for a wedding, and then do it. Anybody talk to you about that?
No.
What's your interest in that?
Well, what I focus on is the ceremony itself. So all of the wedding planning, that's all outside of what I do. I really don't know a whole lot about what goes on. I know the wedding planners work really hard, and it's not a job I would want.
Yeah. My dad didn't do that. My dad was an Episcopal priest, so therefore he did many, many weddings. He didn't do the preparation work for it.
Right.
He just did the
ceremony part.
Right. Sign the papers and you're in.
Yeah, where you
Or as he
choose
used
the
to
words.
say, his job as a priest was to hatch, match, dispatch. And then he added into patch. So it became hatch, match, patch, and dispatch. Because couples did get into trouble. Now, if a book club or other organization wanted to invite you to speak, how do they get a hold of you?
My website has both. It has all my contact information: telephone, address, email, any medium that they're comfortable reaching out.
Okay, and that'll just appear above your head during the show.
Okay.
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 So we'll put it all up there.
Okay, great.
Now, you just finished a project with Jason. So, Jason, how was it working with Dayna?
It's easy. When we went into it, it was from what everybody told me, it was going to be a complicated process of taking 2 people with completely different personalities and somehow bringing them together to complete the book. But we didn't experience that, so it was surprisingly fun.
And what is your part in this?
My part, the book itself, we both kind of split writing in it. I'm a life coach, and so a lot of the info in there was stuff that I had experience with other people. And so, yeah, we co-wrote it in that process. Yeah.
So
this is about counseling couples that are coming into...
It's not about couples. So this is a complete departure from my prior books. All my prior books are weddings and funerals, from different aspects of weddings and funerals. This book is based on a 2-year process that I went through. For an example, the working title before it was published was Falling in Love with Yourself. And so it really was a process of healing for me. It was a journey I went on to heal from a lifetime of tragedies that really hadn't been dealt with and get to the other side of that. And Jason was instrumental in helping me through that process. And I wasn't intending a book. It was just a process I went through, and I did a lot of journaling at his recommendation, but in story form. So the beauty of doing journaling in story form is that it gives you the permission to write about what you really experienced without having to worry about whether or not the facts are accurate.
Yeah, we call that fiction.
Yeah, but in journaling, a lot of times I think we get hung up on, now wait a minute, was that person there? Or even in writing, when we're trying to tell a story, like I imagine people that write memoir probably get stuck a lot trying to remember, now, did that take place there? You know, they're so worried about getting the facts straight that they lose the underlying meaning of what they're trying to write about.
Yeah.
And so I wrote I did a lot of journaling, and at some point was like, this would be a good book, and started to talk to Jason about it, and he mentioned that he'd been wanting to write a similar book. It's like, well, why don't we do this project together? And so we did.
So you wrote a book that was self-help for you and is now self-help for anybody out there who needs the kind of self-help that they haven't found yet.
That's my hope.
And you know, there's nothing wrong with that, because every single one of us, in order to be able to give to others, has to be full of ourselves.
Yes,
Otherwise, it doesn't get high enough to spill out.
Right.
And as a life coach, I can understand how you have probably dealt with people and their psychoses, their shortcomings, their emotional garbage and baggage that they are carrying with them, and you help them to just leave it at the side of the tracks.
Yeah, I think one of the conflicts with our culture at this moment is we spend so much time focusing on what's wrong with us that we don't truly heal from it, because that's what our attention goes toward. This is what's wrong, this is what's wrong, this is what's wrong. And so me as a life coach, I spend most of the time talking about how we move forward. What steps do we take so we're not like this tomorrow? And that's a lot of the tools in this book were things I've used for years with people, and so it just finally found a home where more people could hear it.
And as a middle school teacher, I faced that with many of my students who were coming from homes that we don't consider to be successful. The divorces have been in there, people that are in prison, drug addictions, alcoholisms, that these kids are having to endure while they're growing up and figuring out what their place is. And so yes, we had to speak to those kids in a way that said, hey, look, it's not you. What's going on around you is going on around you, yes. It's not you. So you get to figure out who you are, and we're here to help you. Just as now you two are here to help.
Yes, the beauty of that is you can do that now as an adult. You can go back and revisit that childhood and have that same conversation with yourself.
So that's fantastic. So how's this book doing?
I have been incredibly successful at marketing my nonfiction titles, the weddings and funeral books, easy. It came naturally. This one, not so much. I struggle a bit to figure out how to market it. So I'm still in the discovery phase of who to get it in front of, where, you know, where to place it.
Do you
So.
do book signings?
I
Sign
did a
up?
few in the beginning. I haven't done any since I launched the book. I need to do more. But
Do you have any other projects that you're working on currently?
currently working on a third edition of the wedding book.
Okay.
And then the next project we're going to be working on is a workshop to go with the book. And we're hoping to launch that in January of next year.
And
And we're working with a third author on that. She's getting ready to publish a book that will all kind of ties together and will make, we hope, a great workshop.
fantastic. And so you're going to be offering this crowds, or are you going to just simply put it out there, or are you going to contact like Rotary clubs and Lions clubs and women's groups and men's groups? And
It's a great idea. Thank you.
You're welcome. Because
I'm looking for ideas. I welcome them.
those are some of the places that I know that people can go where they can make these presentations, because there are groups that are looking for their programs. And, you know, so, and of course, if you're holding it as a class, as a workshop, might be an all-day workshop, you might have shortened versions of it to make presentations to those organizations, and then they say, okay, well then we'll expand it to an entire day and offer it out there, and we'll be the supporting group for it.
Right.
So, we writers all begin with our first word and sentence we construct, and we continue until we have a manuscript. Do you have any advice for a writer of fiction or nonfiction, doesn't matter, who is just starting out in this business? Because this is a crazy business.
It is. Two pieces of advice. One is trust your own process. Everybody approaches writing differently. I know some people they sit down and they write until they're done. Myself, I write what I've discovered in both the nonfiction realm as well as more fictional style writing. I write in chapters. I write in scenes or subjects. And then at the end of when I feel like I've written everything that needed to be said, I go through and I organize it. And so that's my process. But everybody has to trust their own process. You don't want to think, oh, well, that's the process of writing. I need to do it that way, because then you'll get stuck if that's not your process. The second piece of advice is finish. Every writer, I mean, it's just like, it's amazing to me. I attend writer groups and various writing events, and I think the number one downfall of a writer is never finishing. There's a million and one excuses why they're not finished.
And the biggest one is, it's just not good enough. Right. And I'm thinking, that's why we have editors.
Right. Well, and it'll never be good enough, because if hopefully you're always growing and learning from your writing, from life. But at some point, it just needs to be done, and you move on and write something else that's better than what you wrote before.
Well, and supposedly you're going for that million words. You know, they always talk about the 10,000 hours to become proficient at whatever it is you do. Well, in the author world, it's 1,000,000 words. So if you get 10 books out there, each 100,000 words, you've got your 1,000,000 words. Every book that you write should progress you to that 1,000,000 word level. And so therefore, as I keep being told about my books, everyone's getting better. And so I have people come to me and say, well, what's your favorite book? And so it was the current one.
Exactly.
Why? 'Cause I'm working on it. Right. I'm writing it. Well, what do you think is your best book? The current one. Because it's supposed to be better written than the previous one.
Hopefully you're growing and learning.
So yeah, I would agree with you. Finishing is a big deal. When I've attended conferences and we've gone to agents and we sit down with the agents and do our pitch, trying to find an agent. I've given up on that. I'll be my own agent now. But a lot of times what I've heard is that 90% of the authors or potential authors never get back to those agents and editors who have said, yes, send me material.
Really?
Up to 90%. And I think, wow, That's just crazy.
Why do you think that is?
I think it goes back to that thing of fear.
Fear.
Insecurity.
I really do think it goes back to that idea of fear. Failure is a big deal. I mean, when you think about putting a book out there for the entire world to read, and then you get that review that says, this book sucks.
That was our first
Say,
review.
okay, and then go on with the next one.
That was our first review.
Well, Dayna, I want to thank you for sharing all that you do in this literary world and for coming out to record this show. I look forward to following you and your endeavors and you working with us as best we can. And if you want to become part of the Kitsap Literary Artists and Writers Group, we do have meetings, and we'll go over that at the end here.
Okay.
We would enjoy you being a member of our group. And we await the possibility of you interviewing somebody here.
Nice.
You know?
Okay.
Maybe when you get done with your book, your own standalone book. Do you have any of those coming up?
Oh, he does.
Yeah,
Okay. Well, then we know who's going
Very
to
soon.
interview you.
very soon.
And we can put it right here. And I would like to thank all of our viewers for tuning into the Bremerton Kitsap Access Television and viewing this Kitsap Literary Artists and Writers production. I also wish to thank the staff on cameras and in the director's chair for the BCAT, and our broadcasts, which are scheduled for Saturday evenings at 6 p.m. on Wave Cable Channel 3 and Comcast Channel 12. And you can also view a live stream on the BCAT website at bkat.org at 6 p.m. on those Saturdays, but it has to be Pacific time so that you don't miss out on the actual broadcast. We have a new contract with Blue Forge Productions down in Port Orchard, and they are going to be presenting all of our shows through YouTube on YouTube Red. So look forward to that. This collaboration is just beginning, and we haven't yet moved all the films over there, or all the pieces over there. I hope everyone has a pleasant evening and a productive and fascinating week. And until next Saturday, I am Peter Stockwell with the Kitsap Literary Artists and Writers in conjunction with Bremerton Kitsap Access Television. Good night.